Welcome to the 6th episode of the JP Eisenhauer Show. I'm your host, JP Eisenhauer, back here this week with fan favorite Connell Scruggs to talk college football and a little NFL at the end. A big headline for the Baylor Bears, Matt Rhule deciding to go to Carolina to be the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Do you think that this will work out for Matt Rhule and the Carolina Panthers?
Matt Rhule did do a pretty good job in Baylor, but I don't know. I don't think it's enough for the NFL. The only significant coaching job he's had in the NFL was he was an offensive line coach, but that's not really a leadership role, right? That's not a leadership role in the NFL, and I think just the way the Carolina Panthers are right now, Cam Newton is constantly injured. There's been questions about whether or not how far he's going to continue into the next year, and of course, Matt Rhule did talk with Cam Newton a couple days ago, and of course Cam said he's going to come back and all that. But of course you're going to say that to your new head coach. Like, you're not going to come in and make a huge deal about it. But Cam Newton being that wild card, and Kyle Allen and Will Grier, you can tell that's not the future in Carolina there.
Yeah, it's definitely not the future, but I think he will be able to turn this franchise around. It might not be the first year, but when you look at it, when he took over as the Temple head coach, they were 2-10, and he took them to 10-3 after just a few seasons. He did a similar thing with Baylor. They were 1-11 in their first season, went to 11-3 this year, and made a championship appearance. He's turned some of the worst teams into some of the best teams in college football, some of the ranked teams, and some of the better teams we've seen in the past, I'd say 10 years, as far as what those programs have been able to accomplish with him versus without him.
And the only problem I have with that is like the prowess of those programs. Temple's not really a large program, so to say it's one of the powerhouses, I wouldn't say that. And then Baylor may have looked good like on the outside, but when you look at the Big 12's record in bowl games, they really don't compare to the other conferences in college football. They went 1-5, and they got absolutely destroyed by Georgia, I'd say. So, with those two things, he may have looked good in the Big 12, but in the grand scheme of things, comparing it to the whole nation, I don't think it's as big of a jump as it may seem, right? And also, what might have seemed like he turned it around so much was that Baylor had a recruiting, like they really couldn't recruit as much early in his tenure. So of course, when they start being able to recruit again, he's going to get those players, and it's going to turn the program around just by that notion alone. But I think the NFL is a different animal. You can't recruit players, number one, and you really got to make guys buy in because they're grown men. It's not like college, because you can't really boss college kids around. You have to make them buy in. And I think that's what's going to be the tough thing about the NFL for Matt Rhule.
Yeah, but the thing is, he did make all of his college players buy in. I mean, they bought into his system and they had success. You could say that he might not have worked for some of the best teams, but he did get these teams, which we would agree are not great teams, ranked.
Right.
He did turn these franchises.
I'll give you that, yeah.
He does have NFL experience. It might not be incredible NFL experience. He was the New York Giants offensive line coach. When you look at it, that gives him a sense that some of these other college candidates that were looking for NFL jobs don't have. He's been around the NFL game. He knows how to control a clock when you don't have first down, stopping the clock. He knows the rules that are changed from college to NFL, so he has enough experience to be able to know what to do and to be able to play good situational football, which is really what the head coach is being asked to do. He really needs to get a good offensive and defensive coordinator and build a really great staff in order to continue to have success. But I feel like he's someone who could definitely turn the Carolina Panthers around.
And I mean, like what you're saying about the offensive line coach, it was only 1 year. It was 2012. It was 1 year.
Experience, though.
And he was an assistant offensive line coach. So he wasn't even like the lead offensive line coach. It was kind of like, it wasn't even, so I don't think that it really equates to NFL experience. I think it's just, that's more of like a positional coach, right? He's more coaching on form and stuff like that rather than actually managing the game in the NFL.
I mean, it's more than Cliff Kingsbury had before he was coming in the league.
Maybe
when you look at it, it's important to know the rules. And what I'm saying is he knows the rules of the NFL because he's been in the NFL.
All right.
He knows those differences and subtleties. And we're going to move on to the championships that's happening this Monday and some of the great matchups in that game. One of the matchups to watch is going to be outside linebacker Isaiah Simmons against this LSU offensive line. Connell, who do you think is going to win this matchup in the trenches?
I mean, for me, this isn't even really tough. Although Isaiah Simmons, he's a high draft pick, probably top 10 in this upcoming draft. Have you ever looked at the LSU offensive line? I mean, they are freaking massive, and they won the Joe Moore Award, which is the nation's best offensive line this year, and they deserve it because Joe Burrow, if you look at him, he's a fantastic quarterback, but they're part of the reason why he is a fantastic quarterback because they give him so much time. And if you look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's a small guy, he's fast, right? But he's still able to run the ball up the middle, likely due to the holes and the gaps made by this offensive line. And it wasn't really brought to my attention, but I saw an Instagram picture of this O-line with their shirts off, and oh my God, imagine trying to get around those guys. I mean, it's impossible. It's like a brick wall in front of you. So I think, even though Isaiah Simmons is good, I got the LSU offensive line in this one.
Yeah, Coach O called them the most improved part of the offense, which is huge because you look at the bleep Joe Burrow made. I mean, this LSU offense is incredible, but they have not played someone like Isaiah Simmons yet. He is a top 10 pick, and they really haven't had that defensive end, that outside linebacker that can really take it to one of these tackles yet. When you look at some of the games they've played, they haven't played top-tier talent this season.
Auburn.
They did play Auburn, but at the same time, their Auburn defense was able to really limit their points, and they were held really close in
23.
that game. I mean, for LSU offense this year,
yes,
though,
but I mean,
the offensive line was struggling in that game, and I feel like Isaiah Simmons is someone who can exploit that once again. And when you look at how he's played throughout the playoffs, he really was a game wrecker versus Ohio State. He was constantly getting pressure, and he's really, even when he drops out, he has interceptions. And when you look at some of the stats he has, it's just been incredible what he's done this season from the outside linebacker position, 97 tackles, 6 sacks, 6 passes defensed, and 3 interceptions. He's definitely going to be someone the LSU offensive line has to watch out for during this game. Next, the freshman Derek Stingley Jr. versus the Clemson receivers T. Higgins, Amari Rodgers, and Justin Ross, who struggled last week. Who do you like in this matchup?
Even though Derek Stingley Jr. as a freshman, fantastic freshman year for him. Definitely one of the best cornerbacks in the league and in the college football. And okay, let's just bring this up. Bo Nix
did not deserve it.
He was named SEC Freshman of the Year. No way did he deserve that. That should have gone to Derek Stingley Jr. for sure.
Definitely should have gone to Derek Stingley. He's had an incredible season.
Right. But with that in mind, I'm still going to choose the Clemson receivers because, let's just look at T. Higgins alone. Over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, and he's got almost 60 receptions this year. And, if you look at some of the catches he made this year, fantastic. He can go up and get it. He's a fast guy. He's going to be tough to guard. And I'm assuming that Derek Stingley is going to be probably matched up on T. Higgins, most likely. But it's hard to stop that guy. T. Higgins, you hear it when you watch the Clemson games, he's the guy that's being mentioned all the time and along with Trevor Lawrence. And then Justin Ross, although he may not get the receptions like both Amari Rodgers and T. Higgins do, he can still make some plays when you need to, especially down the field. Justin Ross is a great guy. He's extremely athletic. And I can't remember if it was T. Higgins or Justin Ross, but last year against Alabama, one of them made a fantastic catch. It was a one-handed catch, and it was across his body, so he had to go the opposite way. He was running, he was running toward the sideline, and the ball was toward the middle of the field, and he one-handed caught it. And that pretty much saved the drive for Clemson, so that's some experience right there. And, so even with that, I'm going with Clemson receiver, even though Derek Stingley did have a fantastic year this year.
Yeah, when you look at T. Higgins, he's made incredible catches like that consistently. But when you look at last week versus Ohio State, Amari Rodgers called the receiver performance extremely poor. They really did not play well. It was Travis Etienne receiving and rushing and Trevor Lawrence rushing that really won them that game. The receivers didn't play up to what we expect Clemson receivers to play up to the past few years. It really kind of struggled. And when you look at Derek Stingley, he really has been consistent as a freshman, and he definitely deserved to win over Bo Nix.
Right, I agree.
And when you look, 30 solo tackles as a DB, it might not be a lot for a linebacker, but for a defensive back, that is a really good amount of tackles to have. He has 6 interceptions on the season and 15 pass defenses. When you look at his stats and just how he's played all season, he's been, as a freshman, one of the best defensive backs in the SEC so far, and he's going to continue to grow. And have big-time players show up in big-time games, and this would be a big-time game for Derek Stingley to show up in.
Right. My only concern with Derek Stingley is he'll be solid for a good amount of the game, right? He'll be solid for about, I'd say, 75-80% of the plays, and then there'll be one play where he screws up, and it's always the big one. It's always a big play. You saw it against Alabama. Devontae Smith was matched up one-on-one on him, and it was a little kind of trick play. They looked toward the sideline like they were faking, and he looks too, and then they snap the ball, and he's behind him, and it's like, right? And that's a freshman mistake. It's going to happen. That's the only thing that concerns me is that he's a freshman. And in a big game like this, he might. You saw it in the Florida game. He was kind of vulnerable that Florida game until he had a pick toward the end of the game. But against a veteran receiver like T. Higgins, he might struggle a little bit on the big play, and that's the only thing that concerns me.
Yeah, Derek Stingley versus these Clemson receivers, it's going to be an incredible matchup to watch. But I'm going to take the hot Derek Stingley coming off. This LSU defense has played well the past few weeks, and I'm going to take them over the Clemson receivers that really struggled last week versus Ohio State. And the last matchup we're going to go over is the strengths of these two teams, which is the LSU red zone offense versus the Clemson red zone defense. Who do you have in this matchup?
I'm gonna err on the side of offense yet again. I've done it every single time so far. But I'm going to go with the LSU red zone offense. I mean, this team is fantastic in the red zone. Definitely one of the best in college football. They have a 78% touchdown percentage in the red zone. I mean, that's ridiculous. You're pretty much, if you're in the red zone, you're pretty much scoring with them. And then they have 96% red zone efficiency, which is 4th in college football. So you look at that, and pretty much anytime they're in the 20 within the 20-yard line, they're scoring, and that's really tough on defense. That can sometimes kill you on defense when a team gets in and you try to make a stop and they just step on your throat. It's hard because once they get inside the 20, you're like pretty much like, well, they're gonna score, and then it's tough after that. And they have 55 red zone touchdowns this year, 55. So, looking at that and the way Joe Burrow's been playing, I mean, that guy plays. He's been playing fantastic all season. He's been consistent. There hasn't been a moment where LSU hasn't trusted Joe Burrow with the ball in his hands this season. So I'm going to go with LSU.
Yeah, this LSU offense has weapons everywhere. But when you look at the Clemson defense, they're just as good. They're the number 2 ranked total defense. And last week versus Ohio State, which I think we can both agree is one of the best offenses in college football and can definitely rival that of LSU. They, on 4 red zone possessions, they forced 3 field goals and an interception at the end of the game. And Ohio State wasn't able to capitalize on the red zone opportunities, which gave Clemson the chance to win this game. This red zone defense has played incredible and in big moments last week in a game that, although they were favored, a lot of people were still picking Ohio State. And when you look at this season, you can say they had a fairly easy schedule, but still only allowing 10 red zone touchdowns the entire year. That's absolutely incredible. This Clemson defense is going to, and when you look at LSU, they struggled against a defense like Auburn, only scoring 23 points, which is still a good amount, but it's nothing compared to what LSU's been putting up all season. And when you look at that defense for Auburn versus the defense for Clemson, I think Clemson's defense is better, and you could definitely make a case that they're better because when you look at the Clemson defense, they're more complete. They have the red zone defense. They have good DBs. They have a defensive line similar to that of Auburn, and they really have not taken too much of a step back from last year when they had one of the best defenses in college football and held Alabama to 16 points in the championship game. It's definitely going to be a great matchup. This new up-and-coming LSU offense, it's still weird to think LSU's offense is the leading force behind this championship run, but it's going to be a great game nonetheless. It's going to be a very close game. And we're going to take one quick look at the NFL before we end today, and it's at the Patriots dynasty. Do you think the Patriots dynasty is finally over?
You can look at it and say pretty easily. I mean, the way that they went out early, right, against Tennessee, I really think that game was due to the matchup that they had. I mean, Derrick Henry is exactly the kryptonite for that Patriots defense. That was exactly what that Tennessee Titans needed to do to be able to score and win a game against the Patriots, right? They struggled against running backs who could run the ball up the middle, and that's what happened. Derrick Henry, he had 75% of the Tennessee Titans offense in that game. But, I mean, Tom Brady has mentioned that he's going to continue to play, and anytime Brady's coming back, you can never count the Patriots out. I mean, and I think that's a pretty valid statement. Anytime Brady is on the Patriots or with the Patriots. And I don't think, some people speculate that he's going to leave. I don't think
he's not leaving.
Tom Brady is not leaving the New England Patriots. People think he might go to the Chargers. I mean, I'm like, why would you do that? That makes no sense. built a team in the Patriots. Why leave it in your last couple of years? That doesn't make any sense. Finish it out strong. You've got such a good relationship with the ownership and stuff there. So Tom Brady's going to continue to stay. Josh McDaniels is going to continue to stay because the Browns' job doesn't really look great. I mean, who wants to go into that organization right now? It looks horrible.
They got talent, but right now it's just a mess.
They don't have talent. They have talent. They don't have an O-line, which is tough for Baker Mayfield. They don't have an O-line. That's when you don't have an O-line and a young quarterback, that's really tough. So Josh McDaniels is going to stay. And the Patriots' defense is pretty dang good. That's pretty much what carried them through the season. So if the Patriots can land a couple receivers in the offseason, I think they should be set to be another playoff contender next year.
Here's the problem. I don't know if they can land a few receivers in the offseason. When you look at their priorities, they have 18 free agents this year, one of them being Tom Brady. Tom Brady has taken a hometown discount the past few years, getting $18 million per year. He said he will no longer do that this year. He wants his money. So now you're going to have to pay Tom Brady the money you pay a starting quarterback normally in the league. You're going to have less money to pay other free agents, and you still have 17 other free agents, such as Kyle Van Noy, that you want to pay, you want to keep on this team, and you can't keep all of them and add in new pieces. Really, the draft is going to be critical for them, but I don't know if they can really build enough through the draft based on what they have from this year. I mean, those last two losses were bad. A loss to Miami, who traded away all of their good players before or during the season, and that's a horrible loss. Tennessee Titans, they were coming in of the past 5 weeks only giving up 60 yards rushing per game. Derrick Henry almost put 200 on them.
Well, yes, but I think the kind of back that Derrick Henry is, he's the majority of the offense. So. And you look at Derrick Henry, if you do not make him stop his feet or change direction before he hits the line of scrimmage, he's getting 5 yards pretty much every time because the way the man runs, he runs like a boulder. Like he's going downhill, you're not going to be able to stop him. So
yeah, he's one of my favorite backs to watch, definitely. But when you look at it,
built by Bama.
This is the first time the Patriots have not made it to the divisional round since losing in the wild card in 2009 to the Ravens. They have the most drop passes in the NFL. Tom Brady had a 59.4 passer rating against the Titans. A Titans defense that is not good. They really have relied on their offense since Tannehill took over because their defense is getting torn apart. And Tom Brady had an 88 passer rating this season, which is not characteristic of Tom Brady. That's his worst since 2013. They're just not playing good football. And on the offense, you can't win in today's NFL without having an offense that can score.
I think the main reason is just the receivers. That's the main reason that the Patriots are struggling on offense. I mean, when you have Julian Edelman as your number one wide receiver, I mean, you're going to struggle. It's not going to be easy on offense there. So if they can get one, maybe even a second guy that it's just as solid, like a solid Julian Edelman type player, but younger and faster, like a slot receiver or something, I think they would be able to continue competing for the playoffs. I don't know about Super Bowl contending, but competing for the playoffs.
The thing is, when you look at it, they had Antonio Brown, Josh Gordon, and Julian Edelman as their three receivers.
Okay.
And they still couldn't have offensive output in that game that would be enough to win in these games that they're losing. And when you look at how they're built, they're not built on offense.
I think that game's a special case because Antonio Brown had been like in their offense maybe a couple weeks at that time, not much. And AB was he even there for a game this year?
He was in the Patriots. He played one game for the Patriots.
Game. Okay, one game, but he hadn't really had time to learn the offense, and that was a behavioral problem. Josh Gordon, we all know
smoked too much
problems,
weed.
Right? His problems with drugs. So, you look at that and how can you really rely on those two guys? They may be talented on paper, but when you actually put them in the system, it's going to be tough. Especially the Patriots system. It's a very demanding system, right? You can't really have an ego in that system.
Because when you look, the Bills are up and coming. They're definitely on the up and up. And when you look at how they're continuing to improve on offense and on defense, that is an incredible defense. I don't know if they can win this division, and I just don't see them. I mean, they'd be a wild card team and they lose. I don't see them getting to more Super Bowls with Tom Brady. I just don't see the team being there anymore. I mean, we were expecting them to go into the playoffs and be the same Patriots they've always been, and they just weren't. Everyone was expecting them to be able to turn that switch and just become the team we expect them to be, and they just weren't able to do that for the past 2 months. They're just not showing up, and I don't think this team is really built for the future. I think it's basically over for the Patriots dynasty. And on that note, we're going to end the JP Eisenhauer show for this week. Thanks to special guest Connell Scruggs for joining me.
Every time, JP. It's a pleasure.
And we'll see you next week on the JP Eisenhauer show.